Hello and welcome to Upside Down. Today I want to show you another tutorial which is related with animations. We are gonna be rigging, animating, and after that exporting everything from 3ds Max 2021 to Unreal 4. Let's start. Let's first start by creating our mesh. We're going to create a very simple model which is going to be like a tentacle. So I will go to create shapes, and after that I'm gonna choose a line and I will make something very simple. We are going to go in perspective. And on rendering, I'm going to enable it in render and in viewport. We're going to give it just 8 sides. And for thickness, I'll make it 0.2. Okay, now I can go and convert this to editable poly. And we are going to do a few changes. First is going to be that I want the base to be aligned with the ground. So I'll select the plane and click to align it on y-axis. I'll also scale it a little bit. Now I'm going to select the edges here and make it so that it goes thinner. Okay, I'm going to delete the very bottom and also I'm going to put some control edges on the very end because we are going to add a turbo smooth so we have more geometry once we create the rig to move around. I'll select the end and we are going to edge. I'll use extrude. For height, we are going to make it on 0, and after that, for the width, I'm just going to put it something like that, just to have the control edges. Now we are ready to put Turbo Smooth, and we are going to add the iterations on 2, just so that we have a little bit more geometry. Okay, since we are done with this, we are ready to start making our bones. I'll go into front, after that, to create system, bones, and I'm going to create a couple of bones inside the mesh. Once we are at the very end, I'm going to use the right click so that we end our bone creation. Let's make sure that our bones are inside our object. Now we are ready to apply skinning on our mesh. I'm going to select it, go to modify, and from the modifier list we are going to use skin. After that, inside the list with bones, we are going to add all the bones that we've just created. And now if I select any of the bones, you will see that we are going to be able to move it around. At the moment you can see that when I move a bone, the transition is very harsh, so we need to fix a little bit the skinning, and this is something which is very easy to do. We are going to select the mesh. After that, inside modify, we are going to click and expand the small triangle here on the skin and click envelopes. And now you can see that if I select those lines which are inside, those are the representations of the bones. They give me these values which is like red, and after that it's fading. So this is the weight of the bone. We need to make a little bit of a transition here and blend it with the next one, because at the moment you can see that it just goes red and there's also yellow and blue values. So I'm going to select the very first one. We are going down, and here you can see that there is a tool which is called paint weights. I'm going to remove the tick. This is going to not blend our weights, but instead it's going to delete a little bit of the weight from the bone underneath and add a little bit more control on this bone. Because you can see that here it ends kinda in the middle of the bone and we have a lot more geometry after that. So I'm going to remove the tick and we are going to add a little bit more weight to our bone. Okay, now I can turn it on again and blend. We're going to blend it on the other side as well. And now if we select some of our bones and move them around, you can see that now the transition is much smoother. Now that we fixed our transitions for the skinning, we are ready to start making our controller so that we can interact in a more simple way. But before doing this, I want to show you something. At the moment, if I select the very last bone and move it around, you can see that I'm affecting only the bone before it. And actually what I want to do is I want to be able, when I move the very last point, to interact with all the bone structure that we created. It's very easy to make it, so I'm going to select the very first bone. After that we are going to animation, IK solvers, and we are going to use high IK solver. And you can see that at the moment I have this line, so we can go all the way to the last bone, click, and it will create this small plus here. So now if we have it selected and we move around, you can see that I'm moving the whole structure and not only the very last bone. This makes it very easy for us if we want to create an animation for our tentacle. So for example, if I want to stretch it, we can just do it like this, and we can already make a couple of different attacks or whatever we want to do as animations. Sometimes those elements are very hard to be selected, especially when you have like more complex models and more complex skeletons. So I'll show you now how we are going to make a controller so that we don't need to select every time the plus here, and we are going to use just the controller to manipulate and do all the changes in our animation. So I'm going to go on top view, go to create shapes, and I'll make a line. I'll make just a triangle above it. We're going to close the whole spline, and now I'm going to move it on top so that it's outside the mesh. And the way to link our controller to the IK chain is by selecting the IK chain, and then there is a tool which makes all the links. This is called select and link. We are going to use it. I'm going to drag from our plus to our spline that we just created. And that's it, it's that simple. Now if I select my spline and move it around, you can see that it has exactly the same effect as if I was selecting the plus. We can as well rotate it and have effect on the whole rig. We can rotate it on different axes, or we can move it as well on different places. The best part about this is that you can actually modify and edit those shapes. Like for example, if this is still something which is not very obvious and visible for you in the scene, we can easily come to modify and enable, for example, the thickness in the viewport, so we can make it a lot more visible. It can be also with text, it can have many different colors and everything that we want, just to make it very simple for us to use it afterwards. And at the very end, when we are exporting everything to Unreal, or if we are using it for an animation which is going to be inside 3ds Max, we can just remove it to not be visible in the renderer, or when we are exporting everything, we are just not going to select it so that it doesn't go inside and it's not visible. Okay, now let's create a very simple animation. I'm going to use auto keys. So we have our initial position. Let's make something like an attack. This is going to be our initial frame. So first we were going to move it, let's say, on frame 40, and we are going to move the tentacle back, and after that it charges forward, so it will make something like this. You can see now what we have at the moment. It goes back and then it goes to the front. We are going to make it a lot faster, so I'll just move this frame here, and now it will be very fast movement. And also this initial phase, I also want to speed it up a little bit. This is maybe a little bit too fast. Let's make it like that. Okay, and after the attack is finished, I'll just rotate it a little bit more, just to have a little bit more details here. And once the attack is finished, we want to go back into the initial frame. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the very first frame, hold shift and drag it across our timeline. So we are going to put it, let's say, on frame 40, and you can see that it will go back there. I'll edit my timeline so that it's 40 frames and we can see how everything is looping. So this is something that we can do by going to time configuration down here, and then the length of our timeline, we are going to do it on 40. And now if I click, we are going to stop the auto key. And now if I click play, we can see that our animation is ready. We are ready to export it inside Unreal. So I'm going to select everything except our controller. After that, come to File, Export, Export Selected, and we are going to export it as an FBX, and we give a name to our file. We are going to be presented with the following menu. Here we need to select few options. So first I'm going to go into animations, and we need to put a checker on the animation. As a start, we have our frame 0, as an end we have our frame 40. Of course, if we have longer animation, we can select here only the frames that we wanted, and as well, one file can contain a couple of different animations, and we can export them one by one just by selecting a different starting point and different end. Now we are ready to export everything, so we are going to click OK. And now let's move inside Unreal, where we are going to import our mesh and also add our animations. Now that we are already inside Unreal, I'm going to import the mesh that we just exported, so we are clicking import, and once we find the mesh that we just exported, here we are going to need to make sure that we have few of the things. First one is to have the skeletal mesh one checked. This is important because otherwise we are not going to have our skeleton that we just created. Then of course we need to import our mesh, and here on animations we need to also import the animations. We are going to click import all. And you can see that now we have a couple of files that Unreal automatically created. First is our skeletal mesh, then we have our animation, we have the physical asset for the tentacle, and we have our skeleton. If I drag and drop it in the scene, after that go to details, and here in the animation mode we can change it, instead of using an animation blueprint, to use an animation asset, and we can choose the animation that we just created. So now here you can see initial position, which is the position in which the animation is going to start. 0 means that we are starting from frame 0. And if we move this slider, we can see our animation playing, or we can create already a blueprint which will be activating the animation every time that we are playing the game. Thank you for joining me in today's tutorial. I hope that this was useful and helpful for you. Leave a like and a comment down below, and please subscribe to my channel if you want to follow more videos and tutorials like this. See you next time.